Hi guys, Trevor Chetcuti here from Spinewise, and I'm talking to one of my best mates here. We've been friends for more than 20 years now. Went to uni together. He's an amazing chiropractor.
Hi.
Jens, it's great to see you again, mate. Great to hang out with you in Adelaide. Always an awesome time to catch up with you. Unfortunately, we don't get to catch up enough. So I just want to have a chat today about health, and Jens is one of the most passionate guys I know about health, has an amazing knowledge on all things that are health and well-being. We just want to have a chat today about, where is our health at the moment as a general population, and why is it that our health is getting worse to a great extent, and what can we do about all this stuff. So we'll start talking about health. What does health mean to you?
I think for the general population and for everybody in general, when you feel good, you have lots of energy, you're vibrant, you want to wake up and get out of bed and actually do something that you feel passionate about, that's when you're healthy. And then you can also start to have your dreams, and you can actually have good enough health to go and fulfill those dreams. And if you want to change to another direction or take up a new sport, the body is there, it's not going to limit you, and you're going to have the energy. You're going to have the energy to be a good dad, you're going to have the energy to be a good husband, you're going to have the energy to try new avenues in life, and that is generally health. Should you get a cut and you get a small infection, well, if you're healthy, the body will heal it,
Yeah,
Right.
this is a really important point, because a lot of people get really confused with health, and they start thinking of health as almost like a sickness thing. Hey, I'm not sick, so therefore I must be healthy, and this is not necessarily the case, is it? It's
No.
kind of like health is more than just not being sick.
No, I tend to think you can summarize it up very, very similarly. That before we get sick, there has to be a problem. And you have to be able to find out what are those problems, because let's just say pick one that we've all heard about, no one, God forbid anyone should have this, but cancer is going to have certain signs in the body. Now, you're going to have the signs way before you get symptoms, and before you get all the worry. Until that point, you're living fine, but you're living a lifestyle that's making you sick and eventually gives you the symptoms. But cancer can be in the body for many, many years. So we've lived long enough on earth now to know what the lumps and bumps are, and what the blood markers are, and what people generally start to show up and say. But you can test for that way earlier. But why wait till you get sick to test for it early, and you find something, pick it up early, so then you have a chance to do what I said before, live and wake up and have energy, and not have to have worries about yourself or your kids or your career or anything else.
Yeah, being proactive is really, really important. We always tend to leave health until we start getting a quality of life change. I've heard Tony Robbins on a few occasions talk about this, and so for most people to make a change in their life and do this type of things, you either need inspiration or desperation, one or the other, and it's not until we start losing quality of life that we really start needing to be inspired or look for inspiration, or we become desperate to change our lives, whether it's a weight issue, whether it's someone who's been diagnosed with a terminal condition or had a stroke or something like that. We too often leave it to the last moment, and we kind of think in the absence of sickness that we're healthy, but nothing could be further from the truth, could it, really?
I mean, it doesn't mean, whether you go to something simple that everybody can understand, you may have a tooth and it's changing colour, and you can see things that are happening in there that shouldn't be happening, but you don't have any pain, so therefore you ignore it until it gets through the enamel, and you eat something cold or too hot, and you wake up and you start to have this permanent pain, and by then you start to say these words, if only I'd known. So I suppose some of the stuff we can talk about is what is it we only should have known, and that is the people we can then empower people with. So if you had only known, then you could have been healthy your whole life. If you'd only known to do this or only known to do that, you could have been healthy. So we don't change until we get the pain. That's to say, people move away from pain way more than they move towards pleasure. So if I have a knee pain and I can't walk and I can't run, let's say running is my super passion. I like running, but I'm not going to kill myself for it. But if I have knee pain, then I will do whatever it takes to get rid of that knee pain, to move away from pain. But if I have no knee pain, and you tell me, come and get checked out to make sure you stay good, that is not something psychologically I've been taught as a child, because if you go back to how we get imprinted in the imprint period, we get taught to do certain skills, and those are the programs that lie within us. So if my mum and dad never did anything preventative apart from brush their teeth, well, why should I? Because that was a program that was given to me, A, for survival, and B, for thrival. So all of a sudden, when someone comes in and says, hey, try and check this out, my radar's up and saying, why would I? He just wants my money.
So it really is important for people to start being proactive and get educated. That's the big thing, isn't it? We just need to get educated and start taking those steps, because there's a lot of different soft signs and subtle things that can be picked up on that aren't necessarily indications that you will develop a condition, but potentially are things that may suggest that things aren't functioning as well as they should, and probably need to be addressed to be that, to try and aim for that top level of function and not leave it to the last moment. I always talk about if you had it the right way, what is it in your life that you really want to have more of? What are we trying to achieve in doing stuff? And quite often people don't think about that until they've lost something, which is a really, really big problem for a lot of people, isn't it?
I would say after the 20 years I spent in practice, this is what people do with their health. Cross their fingers. And then when the pain comes, it's almost like this, here comes the credit card, just fix the pain.
Yeah.
But by then the problem has been in the body for that long, they've most likely ignored it or tried a rub or a cream or a stretch or a painkiller or an injection or something like that, but it hasn't gone away. And that's what we call like a patch up or a quick fix. Now, it's not really necessarily only the pain they're coming from, it's also the lifestyle they're now being excluded from. So let's just say they play soccer and they're playing on a team. That means also their whole social connection is connected to that team and what they do on the field, what they do in training, the jokes they tell, the stories that come into it, the invitations they get, the holidays they go on together. If that knee doesn't get fixed, all that goes away.
Yeah.
And they're not part of sharing anymore. So all of a sudden, getting that knee pain or back pain or whatever they come in with fixed means a whole lot more than just the pain.
Yeah, there's a bigger picture to it. I always talk about, one of the things I should say I often talk about with people is, when was the last time you went to a GP or a healthcare provider and say, hey, I'm feeling all right, how can I feel better? It just doesn't seem like a realistic thing. Our entire society is really governed around, hey, I've lost something, how do I get it back? Which is a really big problem, isn't it? So what are the key fundamentals that you see are the really important stuff that people need to include in their life to be healthy? Or to try and be as healthy as possible?
Look, I've looked after some really good athletes, some of the world's best as well. And I tend to think what I've learned from being around the teams is they don't just look at this person is feeling good today, let's send him out there again tomorrow. They have a whole bunch of people and they sort of look at everything like a little cog in a wheel or a little piece of a pie. So when I come in, I'm just a tiny piece. But when a masseur goes in, he's also another tiny piece. The guys that make sure that all the bottles are ready every day. If the bottles aren't there, they're going to dehydrate and we're not going to get any performance. They have a tiny piece. The manager for looking at the maps and how they're going to ride, that's a small piece. Working out the team tactics, everything fits in a small piece. So they've taken everything and broken it down to an actual science of how do we get the most out. And I think the biggest thing we can ask ourselves is this one. When was the last time you sat down and analysed your own life to figure out which direction you are heading? Because we all know that as we get older, unfortunately, a lot of people get very, very sick and a few don't. So one of the things I like to say to my patients is, well, when you decide to have a problem, I always happen to be here for you and always happen to be healthy. Because you've asked me the question, how do you always stay so healthy? Now I'll give you a little bit of insight to it. I've done what the big cycling clubs do. I've sat down and analysed what keeps me healthy, what gives me full of energy, what gives me a good night's sleep, and I do more of that. So I've actually analysed it. And, then I've sat down and worked out by changing my lifestyle. Last year I did the worst thing I ever did to myself. I took 4 weeks off getting adjusted just to see whether I was speaking the truth. And I can tell you, by the third week I was ready to throw in the towel because I was starting to feel low on energy. I wasn't comfortable enough sleeping, so therefore I wasn't sleeping. My workload was still the same. Okay, so my workload was the same, but I wasn't being looked after. And I can tell you, I'm never doing it again.
Yeah.
Especially now at the age of 48, where I still like to be active, still like to run a decently fast time when I run a 10k or a 12k or a 15k or a 5k. So that the standard I've set somewhere around 20 minutes, give or take a few seconds, is something I can maintain at a reasonably low level of training without injuries because I've taken the course that my patients would like to know to look after yourself. And it is just simply going in and doing some very basic things that the best way to describe it is if you take the emotions out of it, let's say you go to someone for advice, let's just say for legal advice. Should I not, get divorced, or should I not, buy the house or whatever? They will look at it from a purely non-emotional, decision.
We're looking at data. Yeah.
Whereas when you make your decisions based on emotions, the chance that you'll get it wrong is fairly high.
And this is a big problem, isn't it? Because when we really ask people how they feel, what we're really asking is, emotionally, are you okay?
Yeah.
Because the word feel in itself is emotional. So when we ask them, how are you feeling today? It's kind of like, hey, I'm happy, so I don't have any pain, I can do all the things I want to do, so I kind of feel okay. So for a lot of people, they can be in chronic pain and having heaps of problems, but what ends up happening is they win Lotto, and all of a sudden their life circumstances change. They're not as emotional, all of a sudden they feel fantastic. Yeah. Where other people have the exact opposite thing happen, where they just had a terrible day, terrible week, things are going wrong in their life, and now all of a sudden what is just a little bit of a niggle is now, seems like it's the worst thing that's ever happened to them. Yeah. So when we're looking at all these pieces, you're right, I agree with this in a big extent, is that we have like little cogs that really form our health, and our fitness levels, our sleep quality, our structural health, our nutritional intake, our exercise regime, our stress control. All these things kind of come together to form this machine that regulates your quality of life. And that's really what we're talking about, isn't it? And these are all the things that we really need to address. And the big problem is that, from what I see at least, I don't know if you're the same, but from what I see in practice is that a great lot of these people will have that cog, that machine break down, and then really what they're looking for is what is the one piece that is the problem, when realistically speaking it's usually a whole series of those pieces that really need to be addressed, whether it be from an inflammatory perspective with food, or whether it be an exercise perspective with sleep deprivation, all these kind of things that come together to make our health. And when one thing goes wrong, the whole cog breaks down, and then people look for the one thing, which often isn't the case. It's more than one thing quite often.
You're very. You're supposed to look at it. If you look at it as a wheel, okay, and you can divide your life into all these different parts, that has to be right. Now, if the wheel runs smoothly, that means you've got all the parts at a 10. So let's just say you had the center of the wheel at a 0, and you're doing everything you can at a 10. Every part's at a 10. The wheel just runs smoothly. It means your life runs smoothly. It's just a metaphor.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's just say you had the best nutrition, and you had the best sleep, the best training and everything, but you forget to hydrate. Well, eventually it doesn't matter anymore. Vice versa, you could have the best training, the best hydration, the best coach, the best support team, but you forget to sleep properly, and eventually you get another problem. So it's not just about one thing, okay? Because I could have, a really smart guy behind a computer, and he'd be working well for 2 days. He was working for me, but after that he might not be working for another couple of days.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't balancing himself out.
Yeah. And
there's this little thing. So, and also with food, we've been so educated on TV by what to eat. Today McDonald's. Tomorrow Hungry Jack's. Domino's is easy. Look at the smell. Look at the happy people. Because we are simply just
we get emotionally connected to these type of things, and marketing and the research around that marketing really has honed that down to a real science of how to engage our emotional limbic system into buying all that stuff, isn't it? Yeah. So I've got a couple of questions here from some people who have written in. Like always, if you have any questions or anything else, just comment below, and we'll get some of these answers, and we'll ask you any of these things. If you have anything you want us to talk about, or people want to interview, comment below, and we'll see if we can get all that organised for you as well. So first question is kind of a little bit of a hard one to answer, I guess, but you've been in practice for a long period of time, just like I have now, and we both had very, very successful and busy practices, and build rapport with patients very, very quickly, and understand them very, very quickly. So one of the questions I've got here is, so what do you see is the biggest issue with practitioners generally today in terms of how they deal with patients? When we're talking about this health thing, like what is the big thing that you see?
The biggest thing that I've noticed over the years is very, very simple. You need to be on the same page as a patient. So when you sit down and you talk to a patient, you need to make sure that you are listening to what they're saying. Because if they're saying one thing and you have a ready script for them, like I see a lot of people, when you hear it's just the same way they talk always, your job is to tune in, and then from taking that case history and doing exams to work out can or can you not help. Because if you can help, then you can be 100% honest with them. But if you're always just jumping in with some script to sound professional,
or even worse than that at some stages, don't even give a damn really, you're just a number.
Yeah, just a number. So I think people, because it's a bit like the commercials on TV we were talking about before, people feel whether you care or not. And the questions you choose determines whether you care or not, whether you go in depth determines. And once you do a summary of what you've learned, you say, so you came in with X, Y, Z, and we found this and this, yes, I think I can help. What we'll do is these and these tests to confirm it's there. And if that shows we can still help, then it'll also tell us where to start. And it'll tell us, whether it's a small problem, a medium problem, a large problem. And it'll also tell us how much we can do. And after we've adjusted you today, if it determines that, then we can, after your response, tailor a program that'll get you to where hopefully you've said today you'd like to get back to pain-free and have a good lifestyle, and you'd like be able to spend time with your partner and go for a run again and spend time with the kids.
And this is I see the same thing all the time. Like I see that there's just a lack of empathy amongst practitioners generally. Like most practitioners are now so busy right across the healthcare profession that they've just forgotten that the person on the other side of that bench, I mean, we don't use tables or anything in our office, like we're always one-to-one like we are now, but a lot of people still sit on the other side of a table and have a barrier between, it's like, you're on that side, you don't come to this side, and this is my side, like come this side. And there's just no connection, there's no empathy, there's no care, and the net result of that is they just truly don't ever understand a patient. Like, I know you do it, and I do it as well, where sometimes what people present with is not necessarily what they want. I had a lady going back a few years ago now who came in and saw me who, she said she wanted help with her menopause and she was suffering with hot flushes and she really wanted help with this. And we went deep on the issue, tried to understand it. And in the end, when I asked, we really got deep, like, how will this change your life? And what is it that you're trying to achieve? We eventually worked out the whole reason she wanted to get rid of her hot flushes is because she attributed that weight gain to a menopause. So she believed that if she got rid of her menopause, she'd automatically lose weight. So she started drawing conclusions that weren't necessarily correct. So unless we'd actually gone deep and understood what her issues were and how they were affecting her, we would never have understood, and we would have made a program tailored for her for certain issues that actually wasn't what she wanted to achieve. And it's a big problem. Like, I see it all the time where, practitioners sometimes just don't stop to really ask and talk and connect to people.
And I think that the big thing, I was just looking up because I'm thinking back of a specific example, but the big thing that you see, if I had to generalize a little bit, is in anything, whether you're selling hot dogs, you ask, what would you like on it? You don't just put the standard on and say, here. And it's the same thing with a pizza. What would you like on it? Okay. And people say, is there any specific, where you're like gluten-free, or would you like extra this or extra that? So what we're doing is no different, because if they get what they want, they're going to be happy. And it's the same thing. You can go to McDonald's, okay, and you can say, well, I'd like this, but without pickles, for example. So they'll take them off because you don't like the pickles. Okay? Which is what I always say. Sometimes they just want the adjustment, but they're not highly motivated to do anything themselves, so they don't want the stretching exercise. And I said it's okay, but it's just going to take a bit longer, and you won't get there as fast. So
that's their choice. That's their choice. Yeah.
So again, not everybody's the same. But in general, if I had to give you a simple formula everybody can use, it is, discover while they're there, and then as you get started, check in with them all the time. How are we doing? How are we doing? Anything I need to know today? Okay, how you doing with this? How you doing with that? And it doesn't take that long, but it means you are connected. And if you don't do that, well, then it's a little bit like with a person. The less time you spend with them, less you ask about them, the more you disconnect. And if you don't have that connection, like my practices run pretty much on direct referrals for God knows how long. But basically, if you do that, there was an old saying, so if you look after the people, the rest will look after itself. And I remember listening to it, and I thought to myself, well, how do you do that? But it actually comes down to the skills we learn at school. We then refine, so we get better and better at them, and work out when to use what based on our experience. Because you're going to use the same formula. What you walked out of school with was like...
And research is always changing too,
So, but human interaction, as we can find out, if there's a Harvard Grant study that's quite interesting, that basically worked out that the deeper we are connected, the healthier we are. So it's impossible to get someone to heal unless they feel a connection. But the Harvard Grant study we could talk about for half a day, which it ran for over 75 years. And if we can understand the Harvard Grant study with our interaction with the patients, that's probably the biggest thing I can give anyone who's been in practice for a while where it's not working, or someone who's just starting out to find out, where do I find my feet, what do I do, what are the right questions to ask. And I would say, just care. Just like you would want if it was your mother or brother that walked into a chiropractor, and you would hope that they got the best service, then you got to think to yourself, well, how do I get the best service? And the first few times you might be really slow at it, but like anything else, you get faster and faster at it. And you can come up with, if you feel like you've covered all bases, and you feel like they understand everything, just throw in the safety question. Anything else? Any other questions?
It's funny you say that. I remember going back a decade or so ago now when I was first in practice, and I had a few patients who had asked me if I knew any good oncologists, and I didn't have any connections back then. I wasn't aware of anybody, so I was aware of a guy in the UK who I was fairly familiar with. Like I'd spoken to him on a couple of occasions about things, asked him for a couple of bits of advice. And one of the questions I asked him was, hey, do you have any good oncologists that you know that you can highly recommend in Melbourne that I can send these patients to? And his answer was, look, I don't know anyone personally there, but I'll give you the best advice I can give you. And that is, if a practitioner ever takes a parental tone with you, it's time to leave. They're no longer acting in your best interest, they're acting in their own best interest, and ego and arrogance, and sometimes is becoming a grey area. And if someone's not going to listen to you, and someone's not going to ask you for your advice and ask for you as a patient, ask you what your thoughts are on the plan, and give you information allow you to make a decision on where you want to go with your own program, then you know they're probably not the right practitioner for you to be seeing at that point in time. I got another interesting question here from another patient while we're on this topic. I should say patient, sorry, another viewer. And that is, do you have any advice on how to find a good practitioner? Is there any, like healthcare's become, I just want to touch on this a little bit now because this is really important, because everything in our modern day world is getting commoditized. Like we've been trained now to just talk about everything with price. It's like, hey, I'll sell you this mobile phone for this price. No, I'll do it cheaper at this price. And we're in a global economy now. So we've all been trained, like, if I want to go buy tyres for my car and I know nothing about tyres, I don't know what questions to ask. So I pick up the phone and the only thing is, hey, do you sell tyres for my car X? Yes. How much will it cost me? It'll cost you this. Oh, well, that's expensive. Bang. Next person, hey, do you sell tyres for this? Yes. How much are they? Boom. Oh, well, that's really cheap. Without actually understanding what the variance in price is or why that occurs. So this is a really great question. Are there any questions or any advice that you can give to people who are looking for a practitioner? I tend to think,
for starters, you need to sort of look to the future and think about what results do I want, and who do I want to deal with? Do I want to deal with someone who I feel connected to, or am I just happy with being a number? And then you can, to find out about who a person is, you've got to ask them questions. Like I can't just say, I can't just walk down the street unless I say I was single and say, hey, do you want to get married? Hey, do you want to get married? I probably won't get a whole lot of success. But if I meet someone and you say, hey, you look fit, and so do you mind
start dating first?
You start the dating process, and a dating process is lots of questions and lots of interaction. So I suppose after after a while, let's just say let's say you were shy and you're trying to work out how this dating process works. You find out what type of questions work, and you work out what type of questions don't work. And also you can find out which questions are the ones that kind of open up a person to explain a bit about themselves. So if you are calling up, whether it's a physio or you're calling up a masseuse or a chiropractor, they should know within, a straight, easy to answer voice, which should be very calm, because you don't want to deal with it, like you said before, someone who talks to in an authoritarian way. You actually want to meet someone that meets you like this. That you're not above them, and they're not above you or below. So we're just level, two human beings with the same rights. And you're looking to buy someone's service, but you want to know what the service is. So you ask the question, so Amy, how long have you been in practice for? I've had some issues, with some low back pain, and let's just say some mid back pain and some headaches, And I haven't really been successful. Can you explain to me, just very short and sharp, or as long as you want, when I come to your office, what's my experience going to be?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question to ask.
And I think if you ask that question, what's my experience going to be? By the time you get there, if the experience is nowhere near the what I call sales, and then it's probably time to find someone else that actually says one thing and does the exact same thing, and not says one thing and does the other.
Yeah, and this is really big. So one of the things that I'd have to say from my experience with dealing with a lot of practitioners through teaching and also through dealing with businesses and things like this is the value that the practitioner has will generally run through the business, their core value, so their belief system. So if the practitioner is going to be an empathetic, nice, caring person, you're probably going to find the person on the phone is going to be the exact same way, or vice versa. So when you pick up the phone and say you just damage your back and you're looking for a practitioner and you don't know who to do, I mean, most of us will go straight to Google and start typing in back pain or chiropractor or physio or whatever right near us to try and find someone. But we kind of, when we get to that point where we need to make that phone call, we kind of get stuck in the whole commodity thing of, what do I ask? do I just go to the cheapest person? Like, what am I going to get? And as I was saying before, like the value, or I shouldn't say the value, it's the wrong word, the core values that run through the practitioners generally run through the business as well. So if the practitioner is a caring person, most of the time the front of staff will be as well. So a few couple of things that you can look for, which I've seen, which are very, very important. Number one, does the staff care? Like when you pick up the phone and say, hi, I'm in pain, can you help me? Do you get a caring, empathetic person that responds to you, or do you get somebody who just doesn't care and they just want to book you in straight away without even knowing what your problem is? So that's the first thing I'd say. So use your gut feeling and work out, does this person have empathy or not? Second thing I'd say is understand what is the value. And the value isn't necessarily, am I going to get treated right then and there? The value is, am I going to get properly assessed and diagnosed? Because realistically, the diagnosis, and you've probably seen it as well, the diagnosis is the root of everything. Like, if you get the diagnosis right, there's a million different ways you can treat stuff. So if you don't have the right diagnosis, you can't fix it. So if you've sprained your ankle on the left ankle and they're working the right ankle, you're never going to fix it no matter what treatment you use. So the diagnosis is really critical. And the third thing that I'd really suggest people ask for, and this is kind of like a little bit of a off-sided one, is how does the team actually function? So it comes back to what you were talking about before.
And another thing that you can, we talked about before, like, what questions do you ask to find out who am I going to be dealing with? If you go into a place and you felt like that was very, very quick, just pull back, because when we learned, you and I went to school, we learned to do first of all a thing called a differential diagnosis before we came up with the highest possibility. So we might find an area, we might say, oh, it could be a ligamentous instability, or it could be a trigger point, or it could be a meniscus that says it's a knee. Or it could be related to something else. So we check it out and we have our possibilities, and that's just the DD, differential diagnosis.
Yeah.
And out of that we come up with our highest possibility, which is our diagnosis, or there might be multiple in there. If you felt like it went a bit too quick, just pull back, and say, hey, look, I just want to know, what was your differential diagnosis? If they've just flown to a quick conclusion and treated you like you were just a number, you'll probably find out that they're going to have a hard time answering that question. And it's a little safety question for you just to carry as a question. And also the same thing when you call up, ask staff. You can ask staff, what's the normal procedure that I would be going through? If they are well trained in care, they'll know. Because they're normally under care themselves, so they'll know they would have been through the procedure. They'll also know the most common questions that come up, and they would have learned to answer them with ease. Now, if everything fits into that, you feel at ease, and you don't have any sort of fear or doubts, or that gut feeling that comes up like, oh, I'm not quite sure, it didn't feel right, but I'm going to do it because I'm desperate. If none of that comes up, you're heading in the right place. Because again, as human beings, we go by feel. If I went to see you and I had a good experience, I feel good and I have a good feeling about recommending it to my friends, because I don't want to lose my friends, they're hard enough to find.
Absolutely, yeah. So one of the things that I'd say is that good practices that are really in tune with patients, they show empathy, they care, and the big things that they'll do is they'll be happy to provide you with written outputs of your prognosis, your diagnosis, the differentials, what is the actual care plan, how many times will I need to come in, what are the things that are going to be covered during that plan. All these things are things that you should receive as a patient when you're going into a care program to allow you to make that decision. So even asking, will you get these things on the phone before you go in is a really, really important thing.
And also stuff like, do they take x-rays? Yeah, one thing, how well do they get explained? Like,
even beyond x-rays, just the whole, what types of assessments do you do?
And also another thing, just maybe on x-ray specific, that if you get your x-rays explained to you, like, can you do that in an easy to understand manner that makes sense? Because when I see a set of x-rays, it makes so perfect sense to me. But have I developed my skills to such a level where once the patient has seen maybe a couple of examples, they can fully understand their own case and how it relates to what they came in and told me about, how it relates to the posture pictures, how it relates to the function tests, whether it's range of motion or cerebellar or anything else, and obviously where they've come in and where they're hurt. So if it all makes sense to them, then that part of the brain that's just, that still has questions that needs answered can actually start to relax, and the stress that's in the body can start to go away, because we all know no one heals if they're stressed in any way, shape or fashion.
So we'll get back to the health kind of thing, just to wrap it up here. We're running out of time. So when we come back to the healthcare thing, if you could give somebody 3 bits of advice to stay healthy, what would be your best 3 things you could provide? Best 3 things you could suggest rather than provide.
I mean, the ones that I use for myself that is to stretch daily.
Yeah.
And also, like, we've been sitting down now for a little while. Normally, I would have stood up a couple of times just to stretch myself for 5 to 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Because what happens is our bodies adapt, which is why they're great machines. They adapt to the environment they're in. But unfortunately, it's not always good for our health.
Yeah.
Okay. And long term, if you asked anyone who's got degeneration in their spine, they said if you'd known how to prevent that, what would you have done? Well, I would have done it. So that's where education comes in. So stand up, do some stretching, drink plenty of water, because it literally makes sure that everything in the body functions well. We get dehydrated, we don't function so well, and get some sleep. Get adjusted on a regular basis to make sure that everything can work in harmony. Those are just some of the easy things. I mean, there are many, many more, but those are the ones that we've talked about that are free and easy to do. That you can do yourselves. And obviously the last one I threw in there is see a chiropractor, because if you want to have healthy joints and you want to have a healthy body, all you got to ask yourself, is that what I want both now and in the future?
Yeah, and look, I agree to a great extent. So I mean, when I often get asked about this, I speak to a lot of people online and all different areas, and the 3 bits of advice that I really give people often are, number 1, move. You need to keep moving. There's a saying that says, if the brain is the engine, your feet are the batteries. We've got to keep moving. It's definitely top of the list. The second one is make sure we're eating and sleeping well. Good food with good recovery times is really essential. The third one, which I think is where most people go wrong, is you need a healthcare advisor. And when I say a healthcare advisor, I'm not saying a sick care advisor, someone you go to when you're ill.
No.
I'm talking about someone who is trained to pick up subtle shifts, who can basically sit down and have a look through your system and say, hey, look, from my perspective, neurologically, for doing specific functional neural tests or lab tests or whatever, I can say that at the moment, I can't find anything wrong with you, and be honest and open about it from an educated perspective, and give you that feedback on a regular basis to guide you through your journey through life to keep you in that healthy state. Anyway, indeed, mate, it's always great catching up with you, bud. Love hanging out with you, dude.
Wish we did it more.
We should do it more, absolutely. We just never get the chance today. It's awesome to catch up. Anyway, guys, if you have any questions or anything, comment below like always, and we'll get in touch. Catch you later, guys. Bye for now.